What's up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Hops Geek News, your home for comic books, movies, TV shows, and typically we feature a beer of the week. I am Matt. With me, as always, is Lauren, and today we are just going to talk about The Last of Us Season 2, Episodes 1 and 2. Spoilers ahead. If you haven't caught up yet, I'm going to dive into it. We're going to dive into it. I'm going to give a little bit of game knowledge and maybe some things that have departed from the game and the actual show, talk about some things, and then, of course, that's all this one is. It's just a special episode for you guys. Talk about our reactions. But first things first, make sure you go ahead, like, subscribe, share, follow on social media by searching Hops Geek News or on your favorite podcasting platform. Find us on YouTube. Make sure you hit the notification button. We haven't gone live in a little bit like we usually do for Cantina Hours. That's because we've been just busy. But I picked an appropriate feeling beer because the can art is a girl beating up a dude. It's from Clown Shoes Brewing in Boston, 7.2% Galactica Dank Nebula West Coast style IPA. Like I said, I really picked this one for the can art, and that voice you hear is Lauren. So Lauren, what do you have over there?
So I'm actually cracking open a Last of Us themed beer called Click Click Boom.
Oh no, you brave little soul.
So yeah, this is from last year. I haven't tried it yet. So so if you have been listening to us for a while, then God, it's probably 2 years ago now. The show was 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Then I've drank this before. It is a Goza with cordyceps, roasted lion's mane, oyster mushrooms, and truffle sea salt. Now, I got a 4-pack of this from Tactical. Tactical, I love their beer. I do not judge all of their beers based on this one. I also hate mushrooms in general, but I was like, dude, this can art is so absolutely beautiful. I'm going to get a 4-pack.
It was.
I didn't love it. So we're going to see if this is a beer that ages well. I didn't hate it. Like, it weirdly wasn't terrible for a literal mushroom beer.
I didn't like it at all.
But so here's, it
Take
wasn't
that
great.
first sip. Let us know.
They make some of my favorite beers. This actually doesn't smell bad. It actually smells a little more fruity. I don't get many.
She's turning into a bloater. Oh God. Oh man, if you start running, I'm dead.
Oh, this has gotten better.
Really?
This is much better.
It looked like you were going to pass it to me through the camera. I was like, Lauren, what are you doing?
Here, Matt, try.
You literally just reached towards. I was like, wait, what are you doing?
Wow, this almost tastes like a regular Goza.
Oh.
I get no feelings of wanting to bite people. I should have sat on it
for a while, except for it probably would have got drunk, while it was gone, but well, good.
Well, we had one, I think we cracked one open at some bottle share maybe a year ago, and I was like, oh, this is better than I remember. So I just had to let it age for 2 years. Unlike,
there you go, folks.
I needed
Sometimes
to let this show age. Ugh.
Oh,
I will say we're not going to do game spoilers past episode 2.
No. Yeah, we're not doing game spoilers past episode 2. We're going to talk about the first couple episodes. We didn't do an episode 1 specific episode just because there's not a whole lot that happens. But episode 2, Lord Jesus, takes us to a whole other level. So episode 1, this picks up 5 years after the events in Salt Lake City. We know Joel lied to Ellie. Their relationship is on the rocks. We don't quite know what happened. If she found out.
She had to have.
Well, they don't explicitly say yet, and I'll get to that because in the game, she does find out, but she finds out when Abby comes to town, basically.
Oh, so relationship bittersweet or not bittersweet. Then it's an extra blow to the heart when Joel dies. Interesting.
Oh yeah. So we'll go through that in episode 2. But yeah, what was your first thoughts when episode 1 kind of brought us back in a softer tone? Did you expect more out of the first episode? What are your first reactions?
I did expect more out of it, but I wasn't disappointed in any way, shape, or form because I felt like I could tell they were setting a lot up. They've had a very good 5 years. It can't all be nonstop action. It made sense that they had a good 5 years and that we weren't there for it because, you got to move the story along. But no, I didn't dislike it at all. I thought it was fine. We saw their relationship. I love that Joel was going to therapy, and I love that Catherine O'Hara is his therapist. And did you notice what her husband's name is?
Eugene.
Which Eugene Levy plays her husband in Schitt's Creek.
So
cute. I think he
is not in the
murdered,
game.
though. I heard that
he was murdered. Yeah, of course.
But I don't think he was put down. I think he was murdered.
Murder? What murder? He's the greatest guy around. So why do you think he was murdered?
Because I think he found out that Bella,
because he had a killer grow shed.
Maybe. No, I think he found out that Ellie was. I think he found out the truth about Ellie. And I think Joel was trying to protect her.
Because nobody knows that she's immune. That she was bit because it's except for Jesse, I think, right? Or Tommy. Tommy knows. Nobody else knows, I think, at this point.
Oh, because he
because there
killed
was that
Tommy back in the
well,
day, right?
there was that scene, where they were out there doing their thing and you're so immature practicing. She's like, I'm yelling, I'm immune, which in my opinion is dumb. The game version of Ellie wouldn't have done that, but I'm not going to go into that because there's really nasty discourse online right now. I have no problem. Bella Ramsey's doing a great job, especially in episode 2. I'm just saying
Kills it.
Gabriel
She's
Luna,
been phenomenal in Game of Thrones.
she really
Phenomenal
was.
in this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
People are just dumb, but yeah, so nobody really knows. In this one, we get introduced to Jesse, who's played by Young Mazzino, and then Isabella Marquez, who is Dina. And now Dina plays a very big important role.
Dora.
Well, she was in Alien Romulus and a couple other things that I was like, oh, that's why she looked familiar to me. Yes, she plays a pretty big important role in the games and the future of the show. So I really like her character. There's a departure in episode 1. We meet Abby and her crew. Now, we don't know in the game anything about Abby or who she is until she actually commits the act. That's
I think that would have been better.
Which I agree. I don't like that. But I think I know why they did it. It's because, well, obviously we're talking spoilers. So it's because you have Pedro Pascal.
Flashbacks for Pedro.
Well, they were setting people up to be prepared to lose Pedro, which I as you can see, Tabby was not a fan. So she already said that she's quitting the show. But I think they were trying to get people starting to get comfortable with the idea of Abby and what she was going to do. But yeah, in the game, you don't know anything about. So I wish they had stuck with that. I don't like that right off the rip. We're introducing, well, there used to be all of these people and he killed my dad. You killed my father. Prepare to die. That kind of bit.
No, Inigo Montoya. Oh my gosh, you should have said that. I came all this way. Are you the six-fingered
the crew
man?
she's with? So actually, Tati Gabriel, who plays Nora, she's from Sabrina. Funny enough, and she's a really good actress.
She looks
Ariella,
familiar.
she was in a lot of stuff. Owen is played by Spencer Lord, and you could tell, and Mel. And so the people that are with her, aside
one
from
of the girls is from The Runaways.
Yeah. So the people that were with her, though, basically were very uncomfortable with her whole vendetta. They didn't want to do it. They went to Seattle, all of that good stuff. Everything is going kosher in the town. Ellie and Dina go into and they fall into the shop, and that's where we get the smart stalker. Yeah. Oh yeah. The clicker is called a stalker. They're the ones that stalk you, hunt you, kind of things like that. And that was a really cool sequence to show how they did that. And what are your thoughts on the zombies, I guess, at this point? Because these are very different zombies, and I think a lot of people are used to zombie mediums.
I don't know. I'm having a hard time this one, and I'm hoping they're going to explain some of it, because obviously we saw cordyceps coming through, like the pipes and whatnot. But for one, I feel like these zombies are too good. Everybody should already be infected. Like,
they run. Fast. Oh my God. Climb. How are they so fast in running?
Well, and then when they're attacking the city in episode 2, like, how do they know how to get on the roof? How do they know that people are in the cellars? Like,
that's a big problem I had as well. I had a big issue with that.
Maybe they were humans that were there before, and I'm like,
I don't think so.
No, I'm not buying that.
I'm not either. So I get the cordyceps and the pipes communicated with the hive mind, which is fine.
I don't.
That's what because they were moving, right? Now in the game,
why they're saying that they knew. But come on, you know how to climb. You know where the stairs are.
Well, that's the other thing is that's in the game. That's not how it goes. Yellowstone doesn't fall like that, for example, or not Yellowstone. Jackson Hole. That's not what happens in the game.
Oh, that's a comic book.
Yeah. So I also agree with that. I don't know. A lot of people had issues with them going on the roofs, game players, things alike. This isn't a game versus show debate. It's just, we agree. I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, it was just too much. And it was kind of one of those.
I don't agree.
Sometimes when situations get with like, okay, this is absolutely ridiculous. How are they going to get out of this?
Also, they should be frozen stiff and dead in that winter, right? I get they were frozen and then they started running and moving, but shouldn't they be dead, frozen to death?
I agree. And they even had that in the Walking Dead comics where it was like in the winter, the zombies would freeze. So I have another
Zombies should not be running through deep snow in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. I've been there in winter personally, and you're not walking without snowshoes, let alone running.
Well, and aren't these people technically still alive?
Yeah. They're just.
So do you have to have a headshot to kill? I know the cordyceps is in the brain.
I don't think so. I don't think you have to have a headshot to kill. No. So as you can see, they were just kind of capping them. Yeah.
Okay, so then all the more reason that they should be frozen to death. And that was a big thing, too, in the flashback in the first season, where it was like the temperature of the humans needs to be a certain degree for them to be able to be like taken over. But if global warming happens and the planet gets warmer, then they're more likely to be able to take over human beings as opposed to ants or whatever. So
No,
now
you
you're
don't
in
need to
freezing
kill
cold
every zombie with a
temperatures.
headshot. Sorry, in The Last of Us. Headshots are the most effective way. However, you can just spend more ammo to kill. They're harder to kill. They're basically on bath salts, for example. And it
Okay, like
depends on what you have.
adrenaline
So
pumping.
the stalkers are the standard zombies. They can be killed with body shots. Headshots will take them down more quickly. Clickers, so stalkers are what we saw with like Ellie, for example, in the shop. Clickers, obviously,
Oh, the one that
the
like
clickers.
hid.
Yes. Now, clickers are the formidable enemies. Headshots are recommended, but you need to hit them with a few more shots.
Then
And
I feel
then the
like they should freeze to
bloaters
death.
are the giant, beefy boys.
Right.
God, you got to burn them to death, all that kind of stuff. You really got to waste all your ammo. So, no, you don't have to headshot them to kill them. It just depends on what they are. But you're right. I do feel as though the winter should have destroyed them, but
The
neither here
winter
nor
should be their
there.
downtime. Like they should have made it like it was spring and the snow was
They're
melting
on
or
winter
something. I don't
sabbatical in
know.
Florida, all right, with the rest of the old yuppies from Massachusetts.
Well, and
Now,
then the big bloater, like that kill, was like that was too convenient that it dropped dead right there. I thought Tommy was dead.
me too, and I would have been pissed, but we'll
And
get
when
to that
they
in a
were
second.
kissing goodbye, I'm like, oh, they're kissing goodbye forever.
I
Like I
thought she
really
was at
thought he
least
was
dead.
dead.
Yeah.
I don't know why I thought he was, but I also had no clue Pedro was about to die.
Now, in the end of episode 1, there is that dance sequence from the game, and her and Dina kiss. They do have a relationship, but Dina's not strictly lesbian, obviously, right?
No, she's bi. She's even bi in the
Yes,
show.
and
Yeah.
right, and there's some things that go down. I don't want to spoil, but that is a relationship that forms in the game. Now, episode 2 is where things go off the rail. This is a lot of people said it. This is the episode that Game of Thrones wanted with their White Walkers.
I saw that, yeah.
Imagine
It was a little more light.
it was. Now,
But
I'm
Bella
yelling.
Ramsey survived this time.
She did. She didn't get destroyed by a giant, white. And I'm yelling at my TV, even though I know what's going to happen about Abby. And Joel saves her in the game from, clickers and things like that. So that was accurate. But Jackson Hole doesn't fall, for example. But I thought it was really cool how they defended their city or the town with the
Yes, that was
barrels and
smart.
blowing them up. But I agree. They were climbing on top. It was very World
It
War
was
Z.
too much. Yeah, I feel like they should have had I get do the explosion, make Joel so that because I feel like they wanted Joel to be like, okay, I'll go here. This is why I'm willing to be vulnerable and go to your people to help save my people desperate times.
Yeah.
I get that, but I feel like they could have done that without destroying the city. That was they were too prepared. They were too smart. Old and young go to the basements. Everybody else
They
up,
were
know your
endless,
positions. Yeah, and it was all just pointless.
But
I
they
don't
all
know.
survived in the basements. They never got through to the basement, luckily. It was the rooftops. But I still agree. How did they know? And then, one big gripe I have as well is, and it was just a show, right? They were complaining how they would never make it back to town without freezing to death. That didn't really, but they can see the
really
town on
cold.
fire. I was like, yeah, it looked cold, but on a horse going fast, it
But
looks
you
like
already
you could have made it
saw
there.
Dina was already getting frostbite. So and that was the one thing because I haven't watched the game. I'm seeing as
So,
okay, I know she wants to kill Joel. Maybe she'll second think it. Maybe she'll give him a chance to explain. He said because when she walks in, she's like, give them medical attention.
Well, and it was because they were so Dina in the game is not with Joel. Joel and Tommy are together when they're captured. So Tommy's the one that gets captured with Joel and watches Joel die. And Tommy's the one that convinces Ellie to leave Jackson Hole for revenge. Now, they didn't do that in this. It was Dina.
That wouldn't make sense.
A weird change. And, that was an interesting change up there because those two they put Dina to sleep for an hour. And then they don't monologue for 50,000 years. They left a couple lines of dialogue out. It's never going to be one-on-one. But Abby never dialogues for an hour. But that's when you find out who she is and what she's there for. And his death is way more gruesome in the video game. She clubs him to death with the golf club. She doesn't shoot him. She doesn't stab him with a pole. No, she clubs him to death with a golf club. It is very graphic. It's very violent.
Could go.
Well, we crushed his head in Game of Thrones. Poor dude.
But he wasn't.
HBO.
He
Pedro,
wasn't the
baby girl.
He wasn't the Pedro Pascal we know today that he was then. I feel like
it's very
a death
true.
like that today, people would lose their minds more so.
Oh yeah, could you imagine the uproar that would have caused today? Although it was his fault in both regards, I feel like. And I like the line, "I saved you." I agree. I get it. He killed your dad.
We're talking about Heather.
Well, when Pedro or Joel was standing there, hands up, he utters the line, "I saved you," because he saved Abby from the horde.
Oh, I don't think I never
And
got.
yeah, no, he says, "I saved you," and
At
everybody
least
else
did
is
she then say, "I saved myself"?
well, no, she was just like pissed,
Sorry,
and
that
she
was the
was like, "You are
Daredevil joke.
handsome in person," which is a weird line, but
Yeah, because he's like old enough to be her grandpa.
yeah, well, it's
Back
just
down, weirdo.
it's so lame. Like Joel is not a good person. I'm not sitting here, but I think it's kind of lame. He's really not, especially in the game. So it's kind of really lame that Abby is holding on that for 5 years. She never let him even explain his side of things, and
I don't.
Pedro never once did. It wouldn't have mattered.
He
But
never
you can see
tried
the
to, but
rest
I
of her
think that was
crew.
because he was protecting
He
Bella
was.
or
He was.
Ellie.
Well, because he would have explained why yeah, it would have gone into, hey, she's immune, blah, blah, blah. Again, he's
Right,
protecting
and
her
then she's
because,
vulnerable.
right.
And then she would have been like, "Oh, so my dad's death was more relevant than hers, which could
My
have
dad's,
saved
she could
millions
have
of
saved
lives."
everybody, but you
Yeah.
chose this. Exactly. So they don't know at this point. But I thought the sequences was really well done. The tension was there. Seeing everybody's reactions. I've been holding this in for years. Like when this show was announced and you were watching season 1, it was so hard not to spoil. And I'm sitting here, I've been sitting on, and I wasn't sure they were going to do it yet. I'm
That's the
very
thing
impressed.
too. They've really followed the
They
game,
have.
which I'm wondering if they're going to venture further off now for people who've watched the game to be surprised.
Well, there's a lot of very somber flashback scenes that we're going to get with the two of them, which are going to make people even sadder. This whole game is depressing. It's going to rip your soul out. It doesn't get better.
See, we had hopeful moments in season
No,
1, but
it
I
doesn't get
think
better from here. It gets sad and
so.
depressing and very, very sad.
Is the age difference the same with Tommy and Ellie and everybody in the game?
Pretty much, yeah. Joel, is in the 60s. Ellie, the only
Which they
issue
made
I have
Pedro
is,
look older than he is.
Bella Ramsey, she hasn't aged a day in the 5 years, which is fine. I don't care
I
about
don't
that. I
think
don't
she's
care.
literally aged a day in the last
She
5
hasn't
years.
at all. No, she really hasn't. I thought Caitlin Dever did a really good job as Abby. Honestly, I thought she did a killer
Yeah, she made me hate her.
job. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And you know what? In the game, so this isn't a spoiler or anything, but in the game, after you watch Abby kill Joel, they make you play as Abby to twist the knife. And you're so fucking mad. Excuse my language. You're just.
Oh, that's terrible.
I'm telling you, man, these game developers are evil. And so I'm curious to see how it plays out from here. I know we're going to get a lot of good flashbacks, but it's bleak. This story is from here on out.
So I have a thing though with the Tommy thing. The reason I asked the age was because you said that Tommy encouraged Ellie to go after Abby.
Yes.
I don't see that happening this time because I feel like Tommy is kind of like a second father figure. Like he's truly become an uncle to Ellie. So I don't think that he would try to put her in a situation like that. But yeah, so when I was watching all this happen, and even as she's like shoving the thing in Joel's neck, I'm still thinking like, this can't be real. He'll pop up. Someone will come in and save his life.
Dude, it was Joel. So sad when she was like, Joel, get up. And he starts to lift his head. Oh, man. That was really good acting from both people. So
and then
sad.
Falcon goes and kicks him and calls him a pendejo.
I know. I can't. Oh, my God. I didn't realize it was Falcon until you told me because he was obviously way different looking than Falcon. Yeah. Then the mustache and everything. So I was like,
you just made me fall in love with you 2 months ago, and now you're pissing me off.
Oh, you're so nice helping Captain. What are you doing? You just beat down
Mr. Fantastic.
Also, to be fair, Ellie should have started shooting the second she opened that door, but that's neither here nor there. Yeah, no, I thought that acting was incredible. The way she crawls to Joel, she's sad. My question though is, what happens to the horses? They just left a couple of horses up there.
Everybody's who else said that? Somebody else said that.
It was Ski.
Ski said it.
Everybody was basically, what happened to the horses?
Maybe they took the horses.
No, they were walking. Remember?
Abby and them, they didn't take.
Yeah, they were walking. No, they didn't take the horses. And Carrie also was, why didn't they take the other horses? Well, first of all, Ellie is absolutely wrought with grief and now PTSD. Dina just got drugged. She's barely hanging onto that horse. So I feel like you could have, and they're dragging poor Pedro's body. I
thought Pedro was going to be hung over one of the horses.
That's what I was thinking too. They could have done something there, but I do think that Dina's going to be the one to convince Ellie to go get revenge since they've put her in the Tommy role.
I don't know if she's going to need convincing.
Well, yeah.
I could see it being like, I don't think you should do this, but if you're going to do it, I'm not going to let you do it alone.
Yeah, I think that's kind of where we're going with this. There's going to be a lot going on. And I almost feel like this series isn't going to extend past season 3 because the stories can be wrapped up this season, if not in a season and a half.
When the apocalypse has already been going on over 20 years.
Right. They can always expand the universe, sure, and milk it for all it's worth.
Walking Dead.
Ellie's story, I really don't foresee being past. It depends how long they drag it out. If at most a season 3 would be the final season, in my opinion, which would be
Right.
perfect. It's one of those, hey, let's not drag it out too long to be like the Walking Dead franchise where people fall off. And I'm really interested to see, because again, I didn't realize they were going to kill him in episode 2. I thought they were going to cliffhanger it and do it later in the season or drag this out the entire season. And so I'm very glad. I think The Walking Dead showed them that you can't do that. You will lose your audience.
Here's the difference too in that, because I've seen a lot of people compare Rick to Joel. Rick doesn't die in the comics until, like, spoiler, if you're reading the comics, he dies the second to last issue. And then, because I remember reading that issue and being like, oh my God, they killed Rick. And then the next month is like, here's your super thick, very last issue of The Walking Dead. Right. And that was it. Whereas Joel, they killed in the game.
They killed it. So in the game, he dies. This whole thing goes down and immediately right in the second game.
Yeah, so they have a blueprint for the zombie apocalypse without Joel. They did not have one without Rick. So I feel like that's the difference there. So I'm not going to compare the two.
No, and there really isn't. They're way two different things, you know, zombie wise, infection wise. I like The Last of Us better, but that's not to say that The Walking Dead was ever bad. Yeah, they are. It's apples to oranges at this point, but that's kind of where we're at. You know, it's funny to see like Tabby's reaction. I'm never watching the show again. Everybody was just in shock that Pedro died, and it was liberating in a way for me because I knew it. Well, yeah,
but I mean, I would have never come to that conclusion. I really didn't think he was dead, even when I was.
They did a great job.
Dead corpse.
Well, they did a really great job, kind of making you think as they were drawing it out. You know, Abby kept drawing her speech out, and Pedro's like, "Just do it already."
That was hilarious. I actually laughed at that.
Well, and the game does the same thing. And so Ellie's sneaking in. You think that because Jesse's not far behind. They do a great job of building it up to make the audience who doesn't know what's coming think he's not going to die. And then when they pull that rug out, I thought it was really well done. And yeah, so it's almost liberating now that I can talk about it.
I'm so happy for you.
It's sad, but it didn't hurt as much as it did when I played the game. When you play the game, they rip your soul out. So knowing it was coming, we've had time to prepare. So it wasn't soul crushing for me. So seeing you guys, was it very devastating, or how did you, I know you're sad, but how do you feel?
I wasn't devastated. I wasn't sad. I was irritated. I felt bamboozled. I felt like I got into the show because I love Pedro Pascal and it sounded like a cool concept. And then I slowly fell in love with the show. But outside of like the Bill and what was his husband's name?
Ted's Excellent Adventure? No, I know. I know what you're talking about.
His name was Ted.
No. Mosby.
Ron Swanson and the guy from White Lotus. Other than that episode, the scenes I loved the most were the ones with Joel, with Pedro Pascal. So I was just like, are you kidding me? I got invested in the show. They're doing all this promoting with the two of them. He's on all the posters.
Because he's the seller. Like, he's in everything right now.
So I was kind of like irritated. And I was in denial. And then Brielle goes, oh yeah, he's dead in the game. I was like, what?
Dude,
and
what
she's
the
like,
hell,
yeah, she looked it up 2 years ago, but apparently she told me 2 years ago that Ellie has a really big tattoo in season 2, and I yelled at her for spoilers.
She tried to cover her thing.
Never told me anything else. So,
Brielle could have hit me up anytime. I would have been glad to explain, as I had to with Tabby.
So yeah, when Brielle told me that, I was like, oh shit, maybe he is dead.
No, he did. You'll get
flashbacks. Yeah, that's why I didn't even text you.
This is Ellie's story. Game 2 is, this Last of Us. A lot of people thought it was Joel's story. No, it is Ellie's story.
I also didn't feel like it was a momentous death. I didn't feel like it was built.
It really didn't. That's the thing. It just happens so suddenly, and that's what happens in the game too. It happens in a way that you're just left thinking, "What the hell just happened?"
But it kept leaving opportunities for somebody to come in and stop it.
Yeah.
And like one of her friends, okay, stop! You're going too far. Ellie walking in, like time passing, like.
I like that though, because again, you keep thinking, but then it subverts your expectations.
I don't know. It was odd. It wasn't shocking. It wasn't tearjerker to me. I was just like, what is happening?
I can't remember the last time I got really sad about a character's death.
When was the last time I got really sad about a character?
Anyways, that's all we have for episodes 1 and 2, of course. We will continue talking about this, and probably next week we'll talk about some Andor.
I know the last time I cried about a character's death. It was, and this is going to lead us into, because on Monday we'll be dropping
Maria Hill in Secret Invasion.
No, It was Chadwick Boseman. It was Black Panther because Wakanda Forever.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
I
Yes.
rewatched some of that. I had to skip
Dang.
through it because
What?
I'll just
Come on,
start
man.
crying
That's
again.
sad. Yeah. I
Because
haven't rewatched that movie because of that, to be honest with you. I
same,
can't.
but Valentina Allegra de Fontaine is in it.
Oh, well,
So
that's
I
right. That's
watched
fair.
parts of it for
She is.
Thunderbolt.
Well,
Yes,
good news for everybody listening. Thunderbolts is coming out next week. I know there's spoiler reactions out there right now. Please, fans and all that
tread
stuff,
lightly.
tread lightly. We are going to be here on Monday discussing getting you ready. We're going to talk about the Thunderbolts
No
characters.
spoilers.
No spoilers. We're talking about where you last saw them in the MCU and kind of get you ready for Thunderbolts. So make sure you go ahead, check that out. This past week, we talked about the Daredevil Born Again season finale with Andrew Hewitt, who is a mental health professional. We dove into that. We had Tyrell Cannon, our boy, on where we got to talk about his comic Eris. And then not only do we have the Monday episode talking about Thunderbolts, we have next Wednesday, Zach Kaplan came on the show to talk about Kill All the Mortals and his other comic book Mastermind coming out through Dark Horse. And then, once Thunderbolts comes out, the two of us are going to do a special review episode for it. But more importantly, Revenge of the Sith is out this weekend. I personally, yes, we're going to go see Revenge of the Sith. I am, at least. And not only that, but May is Star Wars month. So we're going to kick things off with Star Wars month talking about the Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. So make sure you guys please like, subscribe, share, follow. Hit us up on the socials. Follow the podcast anywhere you can find us on Hops Geek News. That's the name. The links are all in the bio. And make sure you hit the notification buttons. Leave reviews. Help us. It's been really rad. Everybody listening. So thank you for the support. And if you do want to support, patreon.com/hopsgeeknews is where you can do so. And with that said, we will see you guys next week. Peace out, Girl Scouts.